in Sacramento. So you had an organization headed by Michael Heimbach, who is a up-and-coming, they call him the Little Fuhrer. He's an up-and-coming white nationalist, white supremacist, neo-Nazi, and probably I'm probably offending them right now because I'm conflating all of those terms together, even though they vehemently oppose some of them. But every derogatory white nationalist term that you could think of, he is that. And he organized a rally in Sacramento on yesterday. I believe there was about 30 or 40 of neo-Nazis gathered to recruit and to demonstrate. And in response, there were over 300, I believe, almost 400 people who showed up in a counter protest. Now, it turned extremely violent. I believe 10 people were hospitalized, 7 were stabbed. Some people were in critical condition. It was a melee. If you watch the video, you can see, you can't tell who is doing what. All you know is there's a lot of damn violence going on there. There was some footage of two white nationalists who essentially had their heads split and blood gushing from their heads. And so it was a confrontation. No, not clear at the present moment on who started the confrontation, other than the fact that you had people there to demonstrate for their white nationalism and white supremacy, and you had counter protesters show up. I set it up that way because there is an ongoing debate in liberal circles about the means and the manner in which we oppose things like neo-fascism, white supremacy, white nationalism, those types of ideologies that in many ways they have an intrinsic violence to them, right? Their end goals in many respects is one of violence. And so there's a natural repulsion that liberals express when they see people be intolerant to intolerance. And I can understand that, right? I mean, let's just be transparent. I can 100% understand why you would not want to co-sign violence being used as a means to suppress a violent ideology. I get it. But what I don't get, and I don't go for, is this false equivalency that's made to say that people who oppose fascism are fascist. And that's essentially what J.K. Rowling said, the author of the Harry Potter series, billionaire liberal. She essentially, and this is across the pond, she equated one of Jeremy Corbyn's supporter who had on a T-shirt that said we need to eradicate the Blairites, I believe it was the language. And she equated him as being a fascist compared to what they feel is fascism and proto-fascism in the UK, right? She made this equivalency. And to be sure, fascism is a real specific ideology. And I think what happens is, and it's worth pointing out because this false equivalency is problematic, but I also have a problem with the misusage of terms, right? You know, if you want the right term, maybe the term you want is intolerant, or maybe you want the term, maybe you could even go with authoritarian, right? You know, the forceful suppression of an ideology, right? Maybe, but it's not fascism, because fascism is very specific, has a very specific place in history, and has had a resurgence post-World War II, and it remains today. But the false equivalency to say people who don't tolerate intolerance are just as bad as the intolerant, you know, that's kind of a quagmire, because what are we going to do? Are we going to negotiate with people who want to kill us? Are we going to negotiate with people whose entire ideology is the supremacy of one race over the other? I don't know. I'm not, you know, we can't passively sit by and allow, I was talking with Tom Hartman, you know, today, and we were talking about this. Do you want your white nationalists and people, not just white nationalists, right? Any type of nationalism that seeks to suppress another identity, right? Any type of identity, any type of ideology that seeks to oppress and suppress so that they can elevate themselves. Do we want that private? Do we want that hidden in the background? Do we want that pushed and suppressed? Or do we want that open and public and empowered? And I don't think anybody in their right mind actually wants it open and empowered, but giving voice to it, giving a platform to it, allowing it to grow unchallenged. And I think that's the difference. Just as much as those neo-fascist white nationalists had a right to be out there in Sacramento yesterday, those counter protesters had every right to be there to challenge them every step of the way. And the idea that we would allow fascism to have a safe space in our public square where it cannot be challenged by people who are just as vehemently opposed to it as they are them is ridiculous. It's completely ludicrous. I'm not a proponent of safe spaces, and by safe I mean you do not have a pass to espouse your ideology in public without being challenged. There's no safe space for that regard. And I don't care if you have the same exact ideology as I do, right? I'm here projecting my voice into the public square. I don't have the right to do this without someone else having the equal right to challenge me on it. That's just how the world should work, in my opinion. And so you should, sure as hell, if you know I'm not for safe spaces for liberals or progressives, I'm sure as hell not going to be for safe spaces for Nazis, for neo-Nazis. And so where I would not have, me personally, I would not have seen it or wanted it to escalate to violence, I guarantee you they should be there. They should have been there in their face. They had every right to shut it down, because for every protest, there is the right to have a counter protest. And I think that's where I part ways with some liberals, because many times they want to give voice or seem so tolerant that they would give space and voice even to ideologies that want to kill and destroy for the sake of seeming tolerant. You know, let's have a conversation about it. Let's just, and the same thing with Islam, right? We were having a conversation with Kieran Opal a few weeks ago, right? There are liberals who have a propensity to try to protect Islam from everything, even a reasonable critique. Like, you can't even have a reasonable critique of it. And here I am as a Christian, just giving Christians hell all the time, because there's plenty to critique about it. There's plenty to critique about how they interact in our public square. It's plenty to critique about how they use their religion to be a bludgeoning tool against people with whom they disagree, right? Plenty of critique. So here I am as a progressive giving Christians hell, and then I have some liberals who are saying, that we should not have any critique of, or we should just let Islam be. Same exact thing. No, it doesn't work like that. If you are going to present your ideas in the public square, and you're going to go into the public square and shout your ideas to the top of your voice, and you're going to try to convince people that your ideology and your ideas are right, then the person who disagrees with you the most has every right to be right there in that same space, shouting the opposite of what you support to the top of their lungs, and recruiting people to oppose you. There is no safe space in debates, in political debates. Nobody gets a free pass. Nobody.